Let's go out to the guest line right now. Welcoming a man that played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, won a Super Bowl with them, also played with the New York Jets as well. Does a great job for SNY and FS1. That is former NFL offensive lineman Willie Colon. Willie, appreciate the time as always. How you been, my man?
Hey, what's up, brother?
I'm doing fantastic. Can't complain. We'll see what happens tonight in the final wild card game. But I got to start you off with your Steelers. And they haven't won a playoff game since January of 2017. They're getting embarrassed in these first halves, especially the last 5 playoff games. Where are you at right now with the state of the Steelers?
Where am I at? I'm salty. I mean, I'm pissed off. Like, I don't even know. I'm still processing the game. Listen, I thought the first half of that game, they were asleep. And what's interesting, like I said to myself going into that game, if the Steelers just don't look predictable and they come out swinging, and the longer the game goes, the better they have a shot of coming out the building with the dub. And the first play is a flea flicker, and I'm like, great, it's not a run, right? Finally, all right? It is a flea flicker, and Russ has 2 options. Both options were good, right? I think it was like a seam post that breaks loose. He's one-on-one with the safety. Then the other one was up the sideline. All he has to do is just let it go, and I'm fine with either option. I would have took the post because the safety is actually behind him there, and he holds on to the ball for a sack. And I'm like, well, that was underwhelming, right? Because prior to that, the Ravens pretty much told you what type of game it was going to be. We're going to run this ball down your throat. I thought the Steelers had a semi-smart game plan. They weren't going to let Derrick Henry go off. He went off anyway. They weren't going to let – I just felt like after they scored the first touchdown, the flea flicker was a great answer. Russ had the shot. He didn't take it. He got sacked. And it was like womp, womp, womp. The whole first half of the damn game. And I was like, man, like what the – like even Zach made the comment, I'm waiting for the Steelers to show up. And a good indicator of the Steelers-Ravens rivalry is the chippiness after the play, right? Like there's always that level of intensity, like the teams really don't like each other. That never showed up. It was almost like they got tired of looking at each other. One team was ready to lay down, and the other team was like, well, we got to play you, so we're going to beat the hell out of you. And I'm just like, this isn't what I grew into. And it was just, even the fourth, I know I'm tell you I'm still salty. You're the only person I've been able to vent this to for the last 48 hours. So if I want to rant, excuse me.
Go ahead.
But even the 4th and inches, it was crazy. The whole first half, I'm on the phone with Bart Scott, and we're going through it play by play. And I'm like, how does Tomlin not go for it on 4th and inches here? And he's like, no, you can't do that. You're only down 7. I'm like, it's the Steelers. When we haven't been able to get an inch, a yard? We got Najee Harris, and we got Jalen. Like, it doesn't matter. And so I'm sorry. I'm still emotional about it.
No, but here's the thing. So I love that you brought up the Herb Street point, because right before halftime he goes, "This is not who the Pittsburgh Steelers are," but it now is. It now is. $126 to 38. They've been outscored in the first half of the last 5 playoff games. And you're not going to like this. Steelers fans won't like it, but it's the truth. They have turned into the 2011 through 2015 Cincinnati Bengals. They get 9 to 12 wins a season. They show up in the postseason, and then they go home right away. They don't win a playoff game. That's who they are now.
I guess. I really don't have nothing to say to that because I'm biased. I played for the organization. I bled black and gold forever. So I don't want to hear that come out of your mouth.
But it's true.
But the facts, as you just stated, are the facts. What made me more, I guess, pissed off about the game wasn't just the lack of, I guess, response to the physicality and what Baltimore wanted to play, is that we never adjusted defensively. Like, we just never. We just kind of, it was just like it was like, we know who they are, but you still got to play the game. You got to adjust. If you're not going to take away Derrick Henry, and you're going to allow Lamar to kind of do what he wants. Like, I would have forced Lamar to throw me out of that game. I would have forced his arm to beat me. Like, we never made that decision. Like, we know the Steelers play a lot of cover one. I thought we had to win the one-on-ones as far as man coverage. But I also felt like we should have lit them up. Like, we should have been blitz happy, and we should have went. I don't know. I just felt like we played on our heels the whole first half. And offensively, man, I felt like we should have spread them out. and absolutely dink and dunk their butts and screen games up the side, screen games and take bigger shots down the field. The second half, I felt like we woke up and we had a couple big plays. I know Van Jefferson had the 30-yard touchdown.
But it was too late by then.
But it was, yeah. Like, what do you have? Half a Steeler Nation tucked their terrible towels and hit the parking lot.
Willie Colon here with us. I know you love Tomlin. I know you played for him, so this is a tough question. But when you have won a playoff game since January of 2017, and this is the Pittsburgh frickin' Steelers for crying out loud, is it time to just move on from Coach Tomlin?
No, it's dumb. It's dumb. Like, what? Okay, then who? Then who, Zach?
It's a great question. I'm not going to sit here and say Mike McCarthy, but hey, Philadelphia, they got rid of Andy Reid, and eventually they got Doug Peterson in there, and they won a Super Bowl again. So right now, I'm not saying fire Mike Tomlin today, to be clear, and his contract's through 2027. This is what I would say. You got 2 years. Forget that your contract says 3 years. You got 2 years. You either got to win a playoff game or you got to find the franchise quarterback. And if you can't do one of those two things in the next 2 years, everyone has an expiration date in this league. Like Bill Belichick got fired. We've seen Andy Reid get fired before. It's, to me, Tomlin got to be held to a high standard. You're the coach of the Steelers.
Yeah, but the last 3 years with Bill Belichick looked like an absolute, like they looked like the bad news bears. Like they just weren't good. They just didn't look like once Brady, took it down to Tampa, you couldn't even recognize the Patriots. You can still recognize the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like offensively, they've lacked that identity. I agree with that. Defensively, they just kind of tailed that, which happens with top defense, right? They start off really good, and towards the end, because of injuries, whatever, they fall apart a little bit. However, I just don't think getting rid of Mike Tomlin is the answer. I do agree with saying from an organizational standpoint, like we got to find ourselves a top tier quarterback, right? I don't know who that is, what that looks like, because Russ is in his 30s, right? Valley, he still wants to play, and it looks like he wants to make a home out of Pittsburgh. But nevertheless, there's nothing behind him for us to kind of say, all right, the future's in good hands. So you got to make a play here. And they're always going to be good enough where they're not going to be able to draft in the top 10. And they're always kind of going to be in that kind of limbo situation. So, but replacing Mike Tomlin that's not what the Steelers do. They only have 3 coaches in the whole damn, history of the organization. So it lets you know that's not what they do. I do think right now you got to find out for the future. And I don't know. I don't think Justin Fields is the future for the Steelers. I'm just put that out there. I think he's a good, serviceable quarterback. I think he's at this point in his career where he may be a bridge quarterback. I think that's an honest assumption of who he is right now. And I think you just got to find how. Listen, we may have to make a play, and I don't know what that looks like to try to go get us a top tier quarterback. So when we play the Joe Burrows and the Josh Allens and the Lamar Jacksons, we don't look like we're a grade lower than the quarterback on the other side.
It's actually the worst spot to be in, and I know you may not agree with this as a former player because you want to win the games, but they're not close to being great, but they're also not close to being bad.
Right.
And you get stuck there in that 9 to 11 win range, and then you can't go early in the draft and get a Jaden Daniels or get one of these younger quarterbacks like a CJ Stroud. It's a tough fix really right now.
Yeah, but if you ask Jets fans, they'll be there. They will gladly be in that. Oh, my God. Happily be in that position as Steelers. Happily.
What do you think right now, Willie Colon, for the Jets? Who do you think is going to be their next head coach?
I think Aaron Glenn. I honestly think so. I think Aaron has done a great job of promoting who he is as a coach. We all know who he was as a ball player. Extremely smart, talented, scrappy, did a hell of a job playing for the Jets when I think Parcells was at the helm. But I also think I go back to what he was able to do from a coaching standpoint this year. This year with the Detroit Lions, they were riddled with injuries, man. And he was able to put some game plans together with some guys literally coming off the street and go to battle. Obviously, the Buffalo game, they got blown out the water, but nevertheless, he's been able to do a hell of a job. And I think when you listen to a lot of guys talk about him from a testimony standpoint, he's evolved into what you want your head coach to look like right now. Young enough to understand what times are. Obviously having a great insight on how to prepare and build a staff and on and on and on. But also, guys want to listen to guys who played football.
Yeah.
We don't want to listen to guys who picked up a dummies for me shit off Amazon, and then you're like, oh, okay, I guess you're right. Like the reason why Dan Campbell could stand in the room in front of men and have that moxie and that confidence and that bravado and talk all the things he wants to say, because every guy in that locker room could turn on a highlight tape of Dan Campbell being an absolute badass on the field for multiple organizations. And on top of that, being a coach for 11 or 12 years before he got the nod. So both sides balance out. He played the game, he coached the game, and now he's the guy. He's the ringmaster. So, and he's been, I think him and Ray Agnew have done a hell of a job of turning around the narrative about Detroit. I mean, they're gritty, they're tough. If you're a fat offensive lineman right now and you had your choice to play for an NFL team, yeah,
Detroit.
Send me to the Lions. I get to catch the football. I get to literally run for a touchdown. Or those are things, those are only options when I was playing if we were up by 40 and the playoffs were already clinched.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are doing that at week 8. I'm like, why wouldn't you want to be a damn Lion? So I love everything Detroit got going. I love Detroit. I love Dan Campbell, everything.
What did you make, Willie Colon, of A.J. Brown with the book on the sideline yesterday?
It's dumb. Zach, come on. What are you doing? They have apps. They have Calm apps. They got all that stuff. Do that before the game. You're playing the Green Bay Packers. If I was on the other sideline and saw that, I'm going after A.J. Brown. It's disrespectful, right? And then it shows that you're not tapped in, because obviously you're not getting the touches or the attention you want during that game. The inner peace, come on, bro. You're at home. You've been off. It's enough with the nonsense with A.J. Brown. You're the guy. You're the star wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. It comes with a certain decorum and a certain kind of moxie to play one in that offense and be a part of that city. If I don't know what will cause you to bring out that book, but if you feel like you got to temper your emotions, man, put a towel over your head, take a couple of deep breaths, count to 10. But to whip out a book just felt like it seemed like he was grabbing for attention, and he got it. I couldn't imagine me sitting in a playoff game looking at my right guard and he pulled out Othello, bro. What?
Willie Colon here with us. I never thought we'd have that sentence uttered on this radio show, but it was absolutely awesome that you just did so. When you get inside the AFC, where do you lean now? Ravens, Bills, early preview. The game's out until Sunday. Who do you think's going to win that game? I
got the Ravens. The Bills look good, man. I got it. They're physical. They play fast. I thought they got healthy at the right time. Going into that Denver game, it was strength versus strength, because I think for the Broncos, in 7 straight games, they had 28 sacks. And in the seven straight games for the Bills, they only gave up 1 sack. So I'm like, ooh, okay, this is going to be something. And then I just watched Josh Allen, and I watched the rest of that team absolutely put the Broncos in a baby seat and drive around a corner and just tuck them away. All right, thanks for coming out. Take your tails back to Mile High. They were just a class above the Broncos in every facet. Special teams, defensively. Josh Allen looked like a true MVP, even though I would still give it to Lamar. But yeah, they just dominated the game. And I also thought, the Broncos don't run the ball well. They didn't run the ball well all season. And I thought if somehow they can figure out how to get that going, even if they had designed runs with Bo Nix, they have a shot. That never happened, and Josh Allen just dominated, man. That whole team and Mac Hollins, man, he's like the Randy Savage of the group. He's feisty, you know what I mean? He's just wild.
No shoes.
They got it. Yeah, they just kicked Denver's butt. But I listen. I remember when Denver went into Buffalo last year with Russell Wilson and won on a Monday night game. Sean Payton, that head coach, and I said to myself, why not? Why can't they do it again? I thought their defense, the defense had 63 sacks on the season. Why couldn't they kind of, I thought Van Joseph, I thought that whole defense was going to be ready for the fight. It was over early. And it is what it is.
Last thing I'll ask you, Willie Colon. So the big news today, Cowboys, Mike McCarthy, he's not coming back. To me, this is a breakup.
A blessing.
Yeah. It's a breakup where Mike McCarthy dealt with a toxic girl, and he goes, okay, it's time to get out of the relationship after 4 or 5 years. And I really think he was the first one to say he wanted out, but now they put the Instagram post out there that this was mutual. I think McCarthy could wind up as the next coach of the Bears, and I don't like what the Cowboys are going to do here. I think the Cowboys are going to hire Kellen Moore, and I think that's a terrible hire.
If I'm Ryan Poles, the GM for the Bears, I'm going to get me a new offensive line, and I'm going to Mike McCarthy's house with a U-Haul, some Chicago-style pizza, and we're going to Chicago. There's no way I'm letting him take another job because you know one thing out of Mike McCarthy, he gets the best out of quarterbacks. He's already had 3 12-win seasons, right? And whatever you feel about him, yeah, he's not the most exciting coach, but he knows how to coach quarterbacks. You just put the whole franchise in Caleb Williams' hands. He needs development. I like Caleb Williams. They just need an offensive line. He got sacked damn near 67 times this year, right? They gave a lot of money to the right guard, Nate Davis, who turned out to be a total bust for him, even though there was a lot of red flags around the guy. Revamp that offense line, keep that defense together, get Caleb Williams some help. You got to get head coach Mike McCarthy. They will be in the playoffs next year. I think they got enough talent on that side of the ball, offensively and defensively. They can make hay. But I think Mike McCarthy is smart. Like, why would you go into an offseason with Jerry Jones and everything how he controls he's the puppet master when it comes to the media?
Yeah.
Why would you leave out the narrative like, oh well, you know, with the season with the off season here, we got to figure out what we want to do. No, you don't got to figure it out. I'm leaving. I'm done. I did the best I could. It wasn't good enough. I had 2/5 of my offensive line were rookies. You didn't get me a running back, right? That got hurt. Defensively, you let go Dan Quinn, and it was just a shell of themselves until Branch and Parsons came back, right? Like, I'm done. I did all I could. Thanks, Jerry. Take your barbecue, big cowboy hats. I'm going back north. That's what I'm doing.
So you'd rather have McCarthy in Chicago than Pete Carroll or Ben Johnson?
100%. Yeah, I do. I like Ben Johnson. Obviously, he's a big brain. He's done a hell of a job with the Lions offense. But I think what Caleb needs is somebody to slow it down for him, and use his best attributes. I think you go back to that 12-5 year with the Cowboys last year with Dak. I thought Dak was poised. He was concise. I thought his reads were perfect up until obviously the Green Bay dog walked them in the playoffs. That's a whole nother story. But I even go back to that game, the Miami game last year, Dallas and Miami. Like, people forget, I think Dak was in that fourth quarter. I think he had the ball for like 7 minutes, but he kept him alive in that game. He ultimately scored because it was like a penalty. They got back. It was a penalty. He got back. But he was making precise and deliberate decisions with the football and actually gave the defense the ball while the Cowboys were ahead. And then Tua and the Dolphins kind of, they springboarded and clinched the division after the game. But I was like, man, Dak feels good. Like, this looks like a Cowboys offense that you could fall in love with. And then, Green Bay Dallas happened, and that was just a nightmare in itself.
That was a wrap.
That was it.
All righty, Willie Colon, always appreciate the time. It's a great job, SNY, also FS1. Willie, thanks.
Thank you. See my dad fit? This is what happens when you're cleaning the kitchen and you're throwing away chicken tenders or fighting 3 or 4 year olds. This is the dad fit.
I thought you were just a little hot today. Big fella getting a little hot. That's what I thought. I've been in that look before.